with an end, but lead you deeper into Dante's wood.
You've got a great title for your album. I just wanted to say
Oh,
the Laboratory of Poetics and Soundwave Manipulation is like a mouthful, but it gives you it really provokes a lot of thought. You know what I mean? It makes me go
yeah.
like, whoa, what's
It
going
was
on there? So that's
kind
cool.
of it started out as a joke. I just kind of started calling my studio that, and
Mhm.
then I thought, well, it's kind of a creative use of language, so
Yeah.
maybe I'll keep it
Yeah. Well, and
for
it's
the
kind
album.
of it's kind of befitting your like unique band
Yeah,
sound too, right? Like it's a unique name, and it kind of right away it lets you know you're not getting maybe your typical kind of like what you might expect almost or something. Like even when you read the name, you go like, okay, this is definitely different, and that's
yeah,
cool. Like right away, you know, and that's good. That's great for your branding and great for just like get the audience coming in the door is going to know at least to expect the unexpected,
yeah,
which is cool.
for sure.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. So you guys have a show
what I
coming.
said the other day. I went on Monday to do the Rat Tails like open mic comedy.
Yeah.
Never did stand up before, but I'm like, I kind of did it as a bit of a shtick that I could plug my show, right? Because I got
Yeah.
the album
Yep.
launch next week, and I'll be like, well, you know, it might not be exactly your cup of tea, but you probably won't be bored.
That's right. Hey, look, entertainment is everything. It's an attention economy. So
Yeah,
being able
yeah,
to say that is, I mean, a lot of people can't say that about their music. I know it sounds rude to say, but a lot
yeah,
of people make pretty, music, not boring music per
yeah,
se, but like you say, entertainment is part of this industry, and a lot of people do forget that. We are here to
yeah,
entertain, right? Like that is part of the job. So at least
yeah.
for the most part, not everybody, I guess, but you know what I mean. For performers, for people performing, it definitely is. So do you have a history of performing live much? Unfortunately, I'm not actually too sure about your background musically.
Yeah, I've been in a lot of bands, but I was overseas for about 18 years, so a lot of that, performing was in other countries. But I was in a couple bands here at PEI before I went, before I left the island, and then I was I performed as well. I lived in Moncton for about 5 years. I was in a band there, so, and I was like a street performer for about,
Yeah.
I guess, like 3 years. I kind of had like I had a homemade drum kit. It was
Cool.
made out of water
Cool.
bottles and hubcaps and stuff.
Yeah. I've seen
And
those.
and I found that, like, especially then, when I'm trying to get people, you know, I have to get their attention for long enough for them to decide, do I want to give this guy a loony or not, right?
Yeah, right.
So, at that point, I started like throwing my sticks up in the air and stuff like that. And it becomes more of like an entertainer,
Yeah,
right? Because, you know, like some people aren't even necessarily into music, right? Like the, average people that are out on the town in the night. Some are, but some aren't. So
yeah.
and I mean, it's not like a new thing, like a lot of the, if you look at a lot of the old jazz guys, like a lot of those old drummers, like, Gene Krupa and stuff, he had quite a bit of flair and stuff to
Yeah.
him, and I
Yeah.
think,
Showmanship. Yeah,
yeah, I mean,
showmanship's a big part of it. Yeah.
I don't know, like maybe showmanship shouldn't replace the
Right.
music, but
Right. Yeah.
if you can add a little bit of it or something like that, I don't think it's a bad thing.
Yeah, I know. I absolutely agree. I think, yeah, for sure. Yeah, make a bit of a spectacle.
Yeah,
Make it something. You know, what I mean,
yeah,
like you say, entertain the people a little bit. Give them something unexpected. Give them something new.
yeah,
Something to talk about. Something to take a photo of. Whatever it might be. Right.
yeah,
I do think. I mean, a lot of artists, even in the mainstream music right now, you do see. Shock has always been kind of something people have tried to sell with, and you see a lot of that
yeah,
these days. People maybe being a bit subversive or doing things a
yeah,
little intentionally offensive, just because they know it's going to generate a certain type of attention, and from that attention, people are talking about their music. More people are going to stream the thing,
yeah,
watch the video, blah blah blah, right? So it's a weird game we play these days. Because you're not trying to go out and look at me kind of
yeah,
thing, but a lot of them end up doing that
yeah, yeah,
by causing controversy or whatever. Yeah. So you guys got a show coming up on the 20th, right? 20th at Sportsman's, I believe it is.
yeah, yeah. It's basically
Album
my
launch.
album launch celebration. I mean, I don't have a physical album; it's
Yeah,
all
yeah,
streaming.
yeah.
But so it's kind of a celebration, and then there's us, and then there's two other bands, Stratabuse. They're going to be on first, and actually I'm sitting in with them because their drummer had a like a work thing that he couldn't get out of, and then we're gonna play in the middle, and
Nice.
then we're gonna have the Devil's Punch Bowl kind of close it out because they've been playing a little longer here around Charlottetown, and so so I kind of thought that'd be a nice way. And plus, since I'm sitting in with the first band, logistically it makes sense for me to just stay behind the drums and
Right.
let things keep flowing.
Yeah. Instead of having to change the setup maybe or whatever too in between and stuff. Yeah, no, that makes sense for sure.
Yeah,
Devil's Punch
exactly.
Bowl I've seen a couple times live. They're great, very
They
fun,
are
good
great.
energy, very
Yeah.
unique. Their lead singer, I can't remember his name offhand. I did meet him,
Chris,
but very
think.
unique vocals. That's yes, that's right. Yeah,
Chris
great
Bull.
unique vocalist, great performer, like you said, showman, a little bit of flair for sure.
Yeah, he's got
100%.
a good stage presence,
Yeah.
and his voice, like, and their music, it kind of, it's like a maybe a slightly punkier version of Tom Waits or something. I kind of get
Yeah,
that sort of that
that's a
vibe a
good.
little bit,
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, because there's like something very classic to it and like rustic, but then
Yeah,
also they've got a very much their own kind of their own spin almost on it and stuff too. Yeah, you're right. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, and like a bit of blues or something. Yeah, it's an
yeah,
interesting sound, very unique.
yeah,
Yeah, they're doing. I'm really happy for them. They've been doing pretty well. It seems like.
yeah.
So I look forward to seeing them continue to do well. That'll be a great show. That'll be a really good lineup. And you said sorry, Strata. What was the name of the first band? I'm sorry.
Uh, Stratabuse.
Abuse, right. Yeah. So I don't think I've seen or heard them live,
Oh,
but if you're gonna be playing
okay.
drums, that'll be pretty fun, I'm sure. That'll be cool. That'll
Yeah,
be a cool
yeah,
show.
and so it's Stratabuse is Todd King plays guitar and vocals, and Jeff Smith plays bass.
Okay.
He owns the Comic Hunter,
Oh,
and
okay.
I
Okay,
mean
cool.
they've been playing in bands like forever, like even like before my
Yeah.
time, before I ventured into playing music. I think there was a band that I heard of called Papercross. I think they might have
Okay.
been the first like heavy metal band at PEI
That's pretty
to play. I
cool.
don't know if they were any good, but it's just like I hear these stories way back before anybody did that. You know what I mean? And then I and then there were some bands after that had maybe some of the same members or people in the same scene that I did see later. Like there was a band like Socratic Method and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it should be a good show. I've been having fun. Like we had a couple of rehearsals with them, and it's kind of fun, like blues based kind of rock music, I guess you'd say.
That's cool. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me a bit about like how the record came together, like over how long and you know what I mean? Tell me a bit of the story about it, I guess. Whatever you feel like is important points to it, I suppose.
About 25 years, to be honest.
Yeah.
I've always kind of recorded stuff, but I never ever released anything.
Yeah.
I just never. I mean, I did with some bands where I was like the drummer, but not the, not really doing my solo stuff
Yeah.
much.
You're-
You know. Um, and some of it I did the production myself. You know what I mean? I had my own recording gear, and I just like some of the earliest stuff. I had a Roland VS880, which is kind of it's like one of these like standalone kind of units. You know what I mean? It's not
Yeah.
like computer based recording. It's its own unit, and I did some stuff like that, like with different musicians. So there was certain tracks like that where I went and got one guy and did something with him, and then maybe overdubbed my drums or something in the poetry, and then went and got another guy. So there's some tracks with people that played on the track that have never met each other.
Right. Yeah.
And then there's some tracks where I rented a studio and got some people together and went in and sort of did it live, and then overdubbed the vocals. Like, so most of the stuff on the album was like the instrumental stuff was done first, and then I overdubbed the poetry, or pretty much most of the album is that way, except for the song Little Things, which is the most recent. That's with the guys that I'm playing with now, that you can hear them yapping in the background maybe, because we just had our rehearsal. So that one was just done in rehearsal, kind of live, and I wanted to have at least one one track with the people that I'm playing with
Yeah.
now. Like a couple of the tunes were recorded in like Abu Dhabi. Some of them were PEI, New Brunswick. Trying to think if there's anything. One was recorded in Seoul. So it was
Wow. That's
just
really
stuff
cool.
that I had and recorded with lots of different people over for like the longest time.
Yeah.
So yeah, some of them are
pieces you
recent, some of
collected,
them are almost 25 years old, and I finally kind of, put most of them in an album. I still have a few things that I'd recorded that I didn't put in this album that I saved for
for the
that I
follow-up, right?
saved for
Yeah.
later or whatever. But yeah, I guess when I kind of when I was getting ready to come home and was looking to change careers, get out of teaching, and I kind of made this, I don't know, like kind of promise to myself, I guess, that I'd try to do my solo thing, because I'd always
Yeah.
sort of put it in the back burner. I did like like a handful of shows over the years with that stuff, with just whatever musicians I could sort of get to show up. But this is the first time where I think like I pretty much record all every rehearsal, and if I can look into it into my Barn Cats vault here. The first one that we got together was May 3rd, but that was just me and the bass player. That's on 23, and then May 8th was just me and the guitar player, and then I think May 17th was me and the bass player again. And then finally on May 20th, that was the first time all three of us got together. But we've been, pretty much every week, rehearsing and jamming and stuff since then, and I'm really kind of happy because everything else I did was one-offs, and I liked them. They turned out good, but now things get a chance to sort of evolve and change over time, which is very interesting.
Yeah, no, that's cool. It's interesting that you said too, kind of like, different parts were worked on with different people and stuff, and different, people were, some people didn't even know each other and stuff. And that's more or less, I think a lot of, like most of my audiences are hip hop guys. I think a lot of them can kind of relate to that because in particular for me, I can speak for myself only. I had a bunch of different producers that I worked with over the course of 3 years to make my first album. Not quite as long as yours. But yeah, same thing, very much so. Like one in a session, one-off session over here, another one's over at the studio here. I did most of the album, I would say, in one spot, but for the most, like a lot of it was patchwork almost. It's like collecting different spots, and because of that, the album is a little maybe disjointed here or there. You know what I mean? Some of the sounds are quite different between tracks. But that you don't need that consistency anyway. It's the album is what it is, kind of thing. So, but yeah, it's interesting how I think a lot of people's first album is kind of that way, right? Like in particular, or the first release at least of a certain record or sound or whatever. I think that makes a lot of sense. You're kind of collecting as you go until it's ready. Instead of
my second one will probably be a little more uniform because it'll be us three, and I may go back to like some of the songs I'm doing. I may go back to like doing it instrumentally and then overdubbing the vocals just so I can get out a good mic and not have drums bleeding into the vocal mic and that kind of stuff. But other than that, like I sort of like recording sort of live off the floor, especially because of this music that we do. We do a lot of improvisation, so it's hard to improvise when you're doing track by track because if I all of a sudden slow down or get quiet or get loud, it's not quite the the same because they could maybe if they're doing a track, but they could react to me, but then I can't react back. Because my stuff would already be done. So there's room for that sort of
that natural
interplay between musicians. I mean, I've recorded things track by track, and that can be good too, but for this particular type of stuff we're doing, I find that sort of recording it, everybody in the same room, is just best for what we're doing.
No, that makes sense. I think there's like an organic feel to that yeah, like that, like you said, the interplay between the musicians independently and stuff. I think that's a big part of what would make that sound, yeah, organic and natural. And yeah, like you say, with when as soon as you've got the tracks locked into stone, that's right, that you don't get that kind of back and forth, and you lose a bit of that. That's true. That's enough. Yeah. No, that's a good way of putting it too. I kind of never really thought about it too much that way before. But you're right, there is something to that. I guess that's the difference between like a live record, kind of live recorded record, and what a lot of hip hop artists do, which is almost exclusively to track. A lot of times, a hip hop record will be made, and there's not a live instrument played in the whole thing, and nobody's played with a musician. I mean, a lot of guys, in fact, you'll get them on stage, and they won't even have performed their music with a DJ before, and suddenly there's somebody else on the stage that can, scratch or maybe add some effects to their music, and a lot of guys are thrown off by that. It's actually kind of an interesting thing. But whereas somebody who works with jazz or whatever, that's 90%, or not even 90% maybe, but a large percentage of what you're doing is literally reacting to what the other artists are in the room are playing. So it's kind of neat. There's a very big difference, I think, in the disciplines, I think, in a way.
Yeah. Well, I could see, I've seen some like hip hop artists perform with a live band, but it's definitely, it's not what you see the most.
No, definitely not. Yeah.
That's sort of the exception, it seems like, in the world of hip hop. It seems to be done more as because I mean, a lot of the music part is done programmed or electronically like that too, right? So, and probably, I mean, I've never really tried to rap too much, other than I do something like a rap version of Bud, well, kind of a funk reggae rap version of Bud the Spud. But I would guess that when you're rapping, you probably depend somewhat on like a steady, a steady beat that you're not going to get thrown off by, so.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, unless you're like kind of doing a freestyle type thing or whatever, a different kind of vibe. But that's where that jazz influence comes into it, right? There is a jazz influence in hip hop, but yeah, it's almost different lanes. And yeah, especially in modern mainstream rap, almost all of it's electronic. You're right. Yeah, like I said, I think a lot of rappers in general would be a little uncomfortable if asked to perform live like that with, a guitarist backing them up or whatever it might be. Not all of them. I'm definitely generalizing. I don't want to, I don't want to sound rude or anything. Definitely generalizing, but even in my own experience, I have played live with bands and stuff behind me, and it's a different thing. And it actually affects how I do my vocals. I don't deliver as rappy. I deliver it a bit more rocky, actually. I'm kind of like turned into a rock singer. So that's kind of funny. For better or worse, I suppose, too, right? It's up to the audience to decide if they like that.
I can definitely relate to you because, like with the exception of little things, and then the way I'm doing stuff now live, where I'm playing drums and doing the poetry at the same time, and it definitely comes out differently than when I'm, when the music is there and I'm just standing with my microphone. It comes out a little more, a little more relaxed, beatnik or something, coffee house kind of vibes. And then,
exactly.
And then there's some stuff where I'm trying to play drums, and this thing that might have sounded really mellow, all of a sudden sounds like some, manifesto or something. You know what I mean? So
yeah, it's a bit more locked in, maybe, and a bit more, driven.
Like some different, like totally different vibe. So I can definitely see how you put things in different elements. And for a long time, I didn't think I'd be able to play drums and do it because of that. But I think the more I do it, the more I get used to it. And then part of it for me was just accepting that it's going to come out different, and that's okay.
Right. Yeah. 100%. Right.
That's the way. It might be a little different if I'm overdubbing, but the live thing, of course, like we don't really ever play the same one exactly the same twice, anyways. I mean, we have a basic like
structure,
and certain parts and chords, but we always kind of improvise, and sometimes we go to places in a song that we had never gone before. So and that keeps it interesting for us, and
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll be interesting for the people watching it, but
Yeah.
I mean, that's for them to decide, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I've had some like an experimental artist kind of thing open a show for me once, and they played solo. They played two different instruments and did loops and stuff back and forth.
Yeah,
Shout out to Thomas Mears. And the audience was locked in. They loved it. They were like, "What is going
yeah,
on here?" Kind of like they weren't sure at first almost, but 2 minutes in, everybody was vibing with it and stuff. It was very cool. And yeah, there's definitely like there's a different as a hip hop artist this week I don't experience it as much, but there's definitely like a
mhm,
difference between the way musicians work together and the way like
yeah,
rappers work together. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
And the way the musicians do, there's a lot more of like it's almost like a body or non-communicated kind of thing,
hmm,
playing back and forth and kind of switching parts and stuff. Like even jamming with bands back in the day, you kind of lock eyes and you go, okay, you kind of know through each other's body, like we're gonna switch chords now, kind of
yeah,
thing. You
yeah.
know what I mean? And you kind of figure it out. You feel each other out and you kind of lock in. And that doesn't happen so
Especially
much
if
in
you
a lot of
play
other
like,
genres.
especially if you play with the same people for a long time,
Yeah.
you start to get to know those people's kind of idiosyncrasies and
Yeah.
habits, and yeah,
Yeah, their patterns and stuff even. Yeah, yeah, for sure. No, yeah, yeah, 100%. And it's kind of cool that way. Like I remember we used to jam kind of like and I'm a drummer myself too, so we kind of were like we're similar.
yeah,
I found it very difficult to sing and drum at the same time unless it
yeah,
was a very like I knew exactly the timing on everything. I
yeah,
would get a little thrown. I'm not so great as the at the kind of on the fly stuff. That
yeah,
was something I
yeah,
had to kind of learn. But we did jam a lot of like hard rock metal stuff. So a
yeah,
lot of it was just me kind of figuring out when to change the beat pattern and when, he's going to solo and when to just stick to a rhythm and or change
yeah,
it around or have a roll and stuff. But
yeah,
it's fun. It's super fun that way and it's very free. Like it's very just, nobody's too worried about if you are a little bit out of time or anything. You know
yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean? Like there's a much more natural element to it and that's really good, I think.
yeah,
I think a lot of artists get stuck in a structure
yeah,
and then that can become very rigid
yeah,
and then it becomes muscle memory and if you ever have to change it, then you're screwed
yeah,
because I've had times in the studio where I had performed a song live a bunch and then went to record it. And in the recording studio, it kind of ends up coming out a little different,
yeah.
and it kind of messes with
Throw,
your performance or something.
throws
Like
you off a
you
bit.
get used to. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, yeah. Music's a strange thing, man. It's a strange
Yeah,
thing.
it
What we
it,
do,
it
yeah.
is, and yeah, like I really like the guys I'm playing with now, and the fact that I'm getting to, really practice it and rehearse it, and um, I'm getting to the point where if I'm feeling like, fairly comfortable and stuff, like, there's, well, you said you're a drummer
Mhm.
as well, that there's some nights where it flows out easier than others.
Mhm.
And part of that's just physical. Like drums is very physical.
Yeah,
There's some nights where your body just doesn't feel
yeah,
right, and there's
yeah,
some nights when
yeah.
it feels right. But
Mhm.
I'm starting to get to the point where I can sometimes do fills and the poetry at the same
Yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? Which I couldn't do that really much at all in the
Mhm.
beginning with.
Yeah,
And then there are certain places where I can't do that. But it's like I think the longer I do it, the more I will the more I'll get sort of
yeah, like that pace
comfortable and
or
be able
something.
to
Yeah.
expand, to be able to expand with it.
Mhm.
Um, it's kind of funny. Like you were talking about the difference kind of between maybe what I do like with poetry and hip
Mhm.
hop, but I see a thread.
There's a big
I
overlap.
mean, they're both very emphasized on the words.
Hmm.
You
Yeah,
know what I
big time.
mean? I imagine people that are the best, at hip hop are the best at craft because the words are are
Yeah.
really what's emphasized. So the really creative. Um, I mean, probably more conscious of like rhyme than I am, although I do
Mhm.
use rhyme sometimes
Yeah,
with
yeah,
poetry, but
yeah.
not to the same extent. But
Mhm.
I was talking to uh, do you know Mark Valakat that works at
Really?
Baba's? He
Yeah. Oh,
performs
yeah.
under Alley Cat or whatever his
Yeah. Friend of the
hip
show.
hop thing.
Shout out to DJ Alleycat. Yeah. Friend of the
And,
show.
and and I was talking to him about wanting to put a show together because I kind of like when like different like genres like kind of get together, because there's a quote. I'm pretty sure it's Jimi Hendrix, and I don't know if I'll be quoting it exactly or not. But he said, that he said, music doesn't clash, people do,
That's fun.
right?
Yeah, that's yeah, yeah.
Music is music. And there was a show a while ago where it was like punk and hip hop,
Yep.
right?
I would
And I kind of
I did one of those,
love
yeah.
that.
Yep. Yeah,
So
yeah.
I want to I was talking to Mark about putting together a show, and my concept is evolution to hip hop. So like the show would maybe start with a poet who's just reciting poetry without music behind them, and then maybe somebody that does like the slam poetry. It's got a particular rhythm, and then me, with my kind of band and the sort of, I mean, I call it beat poetry, but it's not like traditional, like it's not like Jack Kerouac, like 50, 60 beat poetry, but because it's poetry over music, I've kind of borrowed that term, but I guess it'd be a modern take on it. And then after that, have some like hip hop artists play. And my idea for the poster would be the Darwin evolution poster where the monkey gets like a little greater up every time, and I just label them like poet, slam poet, beat poet, hip hop poet, or something like that. So it's kind of something that kind of have in my mind to put together, because I think when you get like different kind of music together, if each sort of group, they have their following of people that follow them, you have a chance to turn them on to maybe something they normally wouldn't see, and vice versa. Maybe a couple of the people that are right into hip hop, maybe a few of them would like what I'm doing, maybe not all of them, and the same with the people that are would be right into what I'm doing or something. Maybe not all of them would be super stoked with hip hop, but maybe a few of them would be like, oh, that's kind of pretty cool, right? Because I think like in any style of music, there are some people that are going to be innovating or doing something creative with it, and it's not necessarily what you're going to hear in the mainstream. Like there's in the mainstream of MTV or whatever, so like I'm always interested in what's out there,
that's different or innovative or different or whatever. No, for sure. And that's a pretty cool idea for a show like that. I love that idea for sure. And like you say, there's like an overlap between each of those kind of things, like you say, an evolution or whatever, or at least like really similar themes, right? No, that's a great idea. And I think a lot of music has that, like, bleeds into other music genres. You know what I mean? There's like always a Venn diagram kind of thing going on. So I think like a hip hop fan would have, like you say, they might not love in particular all the aspects of like kind of beatnik style poetry or whatever, but there's enough similarities that they could at least probably appreciate and understand it and stuff. Because I've been saying for years that like a lot of these rappers, they like to act tough, but they really are poets. A lot of them are poets that rap, like that make poetry over modern beats. And because it's over a cool sounding beat and maybe the subject matter they write about sounds a certain way and cool or tough or whatever, then you get this like tough guy image. Most of these guys are sitting in studios all day writing lyrics, writing on a pen and pad or on their computer or whatever. They're not living like, it's hilarious to me that the idea that they're like always out on the streets or something like that or whatever, you know what I mean, whatever image they push, that you might assume when you hear a rapper. A lot of that is smoke and mirrors, a lot of that is branding, a lot of that is the music video taking over, you know what I mean? It's not the reality a lot of times. And I think
I've seen interviews from like people like in the hip hop world that basically they're saying that some of that is also at the behest of like the music business, right? 100%. That like I can't remember who it was that I saw that was doing this interview, and he was basically saying like if you look at some of the earlier hip hop, there's a lot of stuff that was very like political and consciousness, like Public Enemy and some stuff like Ice-T and stuff like that. It wasn't all
materialist
bitches pose and look at my bling, but that, and this guy was saying that like most of the executives and stuff in the record business were like white guys, and they were like threatened by this. They're like, well, we got to make, and that I'm sure that like some of the people that are doing gangster rap, that it's genuine, maybe they grew up in that thing. But basically this guy was saying that there's a lot of it you know, is less threatening because it's saying like it's not it's not it's not, you know, necessarily looking at consciousness raising. And in the case of, hip hop, like now there's like, like white people that are doing hip hop, but in the beginning it was a black art, and when people were if they were rapping about, black pride and this kind of stuff, there were certain people that like that was threatening to, if they thought like, oh, these people are going to raise themselves up. So, and I don't know how much truth there is that, but that some of it was manufactured by white people to, we want you to have this just image of you're just a bunch of gangbangers. But yeah, like when you say it's like poetry, and I mean, that doesn't only happen in hip hop. I mean, there's an awful lot of stories of, of rock bands where the producer has said, no, you're going to do this because we, bum, get away from the amp. It's not even my amp. So yeah, there's a lot of rock bands where they said, no, you're going to do this. It's more poppy, and weren't allowed to sort of do their own thing. So I can believe that it happens everywhere.
For sure, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, in the stories with the pop stars too, you sign the record deal and suddenly they're making you dress a certain way, or the lyrics are maybe more suggestive than the artist might even be comfortable with. Stuff like that. A lot of stuff like that happens. The music industry is full of predatory and gross people. That's for sure. If there's one thing I've learned in the last few years, there's almost like a sub industry in the music industry that is not a friendly one. That's for sure. You know what I mean? For every label or every platform that is about helping artists grow and stuff, there's just as many out there trying to get their hands in their pockets and or spread negative messaging or whatever it might be. For sure. I've always kind of championed the positive messaging in music if I can. But that's a personal taste thing. And a personal, like, also I wouldn't be able to sell it, right? You know what I mean? Like, you have to be smart enough to understand what you're doing when you're doing it. And I knew when I started getting into hip hop, I'd get a lot of raised eyebrows if I rapped about certain things or whatever. And I didn't really have any interest in rapping about those things anyway. You know what I mean? So it kind of works out, all for the best, right? But yeah, there's plenty of people that rap tough, and then like, listen, I'm not going to name any names, but I know people that rap plenty of tough guy stuff, and then when you see them in person, they don't want to make eye contact with you because you and them had a minor disagreement that could be discussed pretty quickly. You know what I mean? So you want to act like a tough guy, or feel free, bro. But when I see you in person, if you're too nervous to address a minor thing, then I go like, come on, how am I supposed to believe a lyric you say, pal? Like, you know what I mean? I'm sorry, it is what it is. But that's not what I'm looking for, though. You know what I mean? A lot of people, they're looking for just feeling cool or feeling hard, or, you know what I mean? When they get in the car, they want to hear fucking loud ass bass. You know what I mean? Like, they don't think about a lot of that other stuff the way I think artists do or musicians do in general. I think we look at it way more deeply than I think that, your average music listener does, I think, for sure. So, and we all have our predispositions and what we like and don't like, obviously. So, and then, like, I found the more that I make music, the harder it is for me to hate on other artists I don't know. Like, because I'm like, their story, I have no idea, and whatever they're making, it probably makes total sense if I knew. You know what I mean? Like, I try and think of it that way. And I used to hate on, like, Nicki Minaj or whatever. The artists it was popular to hate on. I used to be that guy too. And then now I'm almost like I'm not the demographic they're trying to make music for anyway. So of course I'm not gonna like the music. You know what I mean? And of course I'm gonna scoff at the subject matter, but it's not for me. So. I like to sort of, I guess, do the same, like, give people, their due, their talent. You know what I mean? If they're selling millions of records, they're doing something I'm not. Yeah, for sure. Right? Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Yeah, for sure.
Or even like, even like you look at like the, the boy bands and stuff like that. It's not what I'm into. But if you can dance and sing at the same time, there's a certain talent to that, right? And I've got to give people credit for, even if it's like you say, even if it's not something I'd necessarily buy or go to a show.
Want to do yourself?
I can still say but you're doing you got something going on.
No, it's a big industry, right? It's almost like I find this metaphor works. It helps a lot of people understand it. It's like there's different, like, you don't necessarily want to go see a horror movie every time you go to the movie theater. You know what I mean? It's the same thing with, like, with artists, even with the music that we make. Like, I don't always want to make a hip hop song that sounds a certain way. Sometimes I want to make a pop
Yeah.
song. Sometimes I want to make a dance song. You know what I mean? So I think that freedom needs to be allowed for people because you don't always want to eat the same food every day or
Yeah.
whatever. You know what I mean? There's so many metaphors you can use.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a bit of a shift, I guess, from what we're saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a strange thing, this music industry, man, because like you say, a lot of that stuff that I complain about, maybe subject wise, it sells really well. So
Yeah.
it is what it is. And as an artist, you have to decide when you're going into the industry if you're willing to, maybe there's a give and take. Okay, maybe I will rap about these things because it's going to
Yeah.
get me to that next level, and then I'll have a better platform so I can tell
Yeah.
more people the messages I want them to
Yeah.
hear or whatever, right? There is there's a trade-off, I'm sure,
Yeah.
involved in some of that. But nobody wants like, at least I don't think I would want to be that guy that's like signs the record deal and suddenly I don't control any of my own music and they're handing me
Yeah.
a piece of paper and telling me what to sing
Yeah.
and I mean, this is the music video, you're going to dress this way, and suddenly I'm not part of the suddenly I'm the product and I'm not part of the creative process anymore as much, and I wouldn't
Yeah.
want that. And there's a whole lane
I
of that,
think,
and if you want to get paid in the music industry, go that way for sure. But if you're really, if it's about the art, you're probably not going to go that way so much, right? If it's about the money or the fame or whatever, right? Then
yeah.
maybe, but and
Yeah,
those
I think
options
there's
aren't
something to
available to
be
everybody either.
there's something to be said where if you do want to keep that control, I think like keeping it independent until you've reached a level of like I read this book like a long time ago. It was called Welcome to the Jungle, and it was about the music industry,
Yeah,
and it was saying how like for example like the Red Hot Chili Peppers, like they were kind of independent, and they had enough of a following doing things their own way that they were able to kind of still kind of call the shots because they proved that they could sell a certain
yeah,
amount
yeah.
doing it the way they wanted to. So I think some people, if they get the chance and they sign too quickly, you
They
then
don't
they
have that
don't have any
language.
they don't have
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
any say. But if you get to the point where I suppose where you've gone to a certain level independently, and if they come calling on you, and if you have a way to say, well, I'm already doing this,
Yeah, yeah,
and I could go to the next level, but I'm not willing to sacrifice this, and I'm willing to walk away from it. If
mhm,
there's not a compromise or something like
yeah,
that, like,
yeah,
um, but I mean, I think there's two. I think there's a lot of artists too that there's doesn't have to be all or nothing. Like there's a lot of
100%.
artists that maybe have something that they do that's like quite mainstream, but then they do a bunch of side projects,
Mhm,
that aren't gonna reach as many people,
yeah,
but that mainstream stuff, gave them enough money that they have the freedom to go
yeah, yeah,
and uh, and record whatever they want to do on an
yeah. The
independent
stuff they
side
want.
project or
Yeah.
something. And
Mhm.
so, I mean, there's lots of different ways you can look at it. I don't really want to knock other people too much. Like
Yeah. For sure.
do
No,
what
yeah,
I
of
do.
course, right. Yeah, 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 yeah. No, yeah. It's one of those things you got to decide when you go in, like what do you expect to get out
Yeah,
of it, right? You got a lot of artists go into music, like start making music without thinking about what their own
yeah,
personal goals are within it. A lot of people just think like, oh, I want to be Drake or whatever, you know what I mean? Like
yeah, yeah,
it's not really a goal, really, even, you know what I mean? It's like doesn't really make sense. So, but for me, I've always was very clear, like very early on. I decided like if I don't make a dime off this, then that's fine. I'm making these records anyway,
yeah,
and I started making music from there. And sure enough, within 2 years, I had made not money, like but I get paid to perform sometimes.
yeah,
You know what I mean? That's more than a lot of people
yeah,
can say. So so that says that already was like, okay, I've already hit some levels of the success I was kind of hoping for. So then it's like, okay, time to set some new goals,
yeah,
time to refocus, trying to figure out what the
yeah,
next thing is, right? And then so I've got some loftier goals now that are going to be harder to achieve and may not be achievable, but the pursuit of those, like I've already decided, like whether it happens or not, I'm still going to try to get to those goals, right? And a lot of people, I think that's the main thing, is just decide what those are, what you're willing to invest or sacrifice to get to those if you can, or to try and get to those.
yeah, yeah,
It's a difficult conversation to have too. You have to be realistic, but you also have to be a dreamer. I mean, this is art. This is an industry where one song can really change your life. So
yeah,
it's hard not to keep some of those like almost like naive optimism or something, because
yeah,
you
yeah,
go like, hey, the next one could be the one. You know what I mean? And that's addictive in a way too,
yeah,
right? Like that can also be unhealthy.
yeah,
So it's important to find the right balance is in
Yeah.
everything in life. Everything in life, you need to
I,
find the
I find
balance. Yeah.
I find like when I was living in Korea and I was I was teaching English and I was making okay money from that job, and I found
Mm.
that gave me a certain amount of, like, I could go to a gig and I didn't have to worry about how much money I was making because
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I was able to support myself fine, and
Mm.
especially like later when I started getting like university jobs, like, I had a job where I had almost 5 months paid vacation, so there was a lot
Yeah.
of time that I could spend, not even going to work and doing music, but still getting a paycheck every month. And so I'm sort of, I mean, I'm 51, so I'm right now I'm kind of happy doing, doing music that I feel uh, emotionally invested in,
Yeah.
and I'm almost finishing up my master's degree, for like guidance
Congratulations.
and counseling. So I'll be a guidance counselor, and that'll pay well. But
Yeah.
as I'm working in the school systems, I'll also have summers off to,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
maybe
Do some
you
shows.
know do the
Yeah.
do the show, and I can still do shows through the rest of the year. But during the summer, if it started uh if it started taking off a little bit, I'd also perhaps have the ability to like do a tour or something
Yeah.
if it came to that. But I also, because I think counseling is something I feel quite passionate about, I'm also kind of similar to you. Like I'm okay
Mm.
if my music doesn't take off
Yeah.
and, and and make me a bunch of money, and I find that quite
Yeah.
freeing.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
Because I'm
Well.
not
Yeah.
going to be, if I want to make a particular kind of music, I'm not going to be pressured like, oh, I have to do this because I need to get that paycheck,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
100%. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Well.
if, like you say, one one song can change
Yeah.
people's lives, like if that happens, then I have that decision to make. Like, do I, go
Yeah.
off and follow this wave or not? Um, but if I'm only ever, you know, recording my music and putting it out there and playing a few gigs around my town, like, that's okay too,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, that's 90% of it is that, you know what I mean? It's the very
Yeah,
small, even more than that. It's very small percent that does, like is world traveling artists
yeah,
or world touring type things, or you know what I mean? And also to be fair, like I think you and I can both agree that we're not necessarily making the music that we're making expecting it to be number one hits on
yeah,
pop radio. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
like
yeah,
obviously, like if we were trying to make that kind of music, it'd be a bit, maybe more obvious.
yeah, yeah,
Like beatnik kind of jam poetry is not what you hear on the radio typically, right? And even the
yeah,
hip
yeah,
hop I make I make fairly radio friendly hip hop,
yeah,
but it's like it's not. I'm not trying to make like I mean Taylor Swift or The Weeknd type,
yeah,
I mean pop music that's going to blow up on the radio that same way.
yeah,
But even me though, I kind of angle to go like I would like my music played on the radio. That was always
yeah,
one of the goals I had. So that's part of why I make the music sounding the way I do because I did want a bit of radio play. It was like something I always wanted. That was one of my
yeah,
goals, right?
yeah,
So it's a matter of getting like regularly spun on the radio is a totally different thing these days anyway. Like
yeah,
that in itself is
yeah,
almost a pipe dream unless you've got a
yeah,
record label behind you or whatever, right? So it's one of those things where once you learn, you come into the industry with a lot of ideas,
yeah,
and usually just the idea of making just good music and stuff, and that's
yeah,
great. But then you start learning really fast, like what doors are open, which ones close, what's
yeah,
available and what's not, and what's realistic, and what could be realistic down the road but isn't now, or all that
yeah.
stuff. It can be frustrating,
I
It can
could
be real
see my
frustrating.
stuff being played on like CBC
Yeah.
radio, maybe.
Oh,
They
100%,
play
100%.
some out there
Yeah.
stuff, but
Yeah.
I don't think I'd be on top 40
No.
radio. I mean, well,
Yeah.
maybe the Spud I do. It's kind of,
Right.
it's kind of a funny jokey one. So I could see that, and that'd be, I mean, uh, froze up there for a second, I think.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
That'd be sort of like, well, like I didn't put it in my first album because like I wouldn't want I wouldn't want that to maybe blow up right away, you know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. On
Plus I'd have
TikTok,
to
you never know with
figure
something like
out
that.
because it's somebody else's song, I'd have to figure
Right.
out whatever I need to do with like licensing
Yeah. Right.
or
Copyright and all
whatever it
that.
is, you know.
Yeah,
So,
publishing.
and
Yeah.
when I did decide to put this out, it was kind of like kind of just rushed into it. Like I'd kind of become friends with this guy Adam Michael James. He has a
Yeah.
podcast, Isle Tunes. You
Shout
know,
out
he
to Adam.
plays all like, you know, PEI music, and
Yeah.
you know, he'd had a song or something on the streaming, and I was like, I wasn't sure how to do it, and he said, yeah, I'll come over or whatever, and kind of show you. So he kind of got me hooked up onto this TuneCore thing,
We're
and you know, and
great.
then
Yep.
once I was kind of doing it, it was like, you know, like even like little things, you know, I did maybe a little bit more fiddling with the dials
Mm.
than I normally would for my weekly kind of, you know, or rehearsal jam, you know, record everything, and then
Yeah.
you know, and then you know, I whatever mix it down and send it to the guys, but I don't spend a lot of time trying to get a really great mix, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? I get it like,
Yeah.
I mean, I've started a little bit more like doing stuff like layering the, you know, like copying and layering the guitar tracks onto 3 or 4 tracks just
Right.
to give it a more big
Yeah.
set. So
So
I've
like,
done a little bit more, but like little things. You know, I spent a little bit more time, and then I did like Logic has its own sort of mastering thing. I
right.
sort of did that, and then I just threw it on. So you know, the quality is isn't going to be as good as the quality, like in terms of production, as some of
Right.
the stuff that I did in like professional studios. But you
Mhm.
know, probably if I do another album, I'll probably try to get, you know, a grant or funding,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
and I'd probably get the mix as good as I can myself, and then bring somebody else in to do maybe a, you know, somebody that's been trained a little bit more to do a little bit more, and then probably send it away for mastering,
Right.
you know. But I was just happy to get something out there, you know.
Yeah. Oh, it's a really unique feeling. It's hard to describe when you finally kind of have completed something
Yeah,
like that. I mean, especially for yours. I can only imagine 25 years is a long time. Mine was 3 years, and it
yeah,
kind of came together, kind of like not quickly, but it kind of came together a bit. Um, like I had been actually planning on recording a whole new album of material,
yeah,
and then that kind of fell through, and it was like, you know what, let's get this album of all the stuff I've done and kind of, you know, put it together as a way of like as a tribute almost or whatever, as like, look, this is 3 years of my
yeah,
life, like let's get this on paper and get it on wax and then move on to the next thing next. And so there's something really cathartic about that, or something like there was a weird mix of emotions about it, you know what I mean?
mm,
Because there's a lot to it, a lot of gravity behind that, you know what I mean? That's a big commitment. um
yeah,
and like, so congratulations to you,
mm,
first of all, for getting the record like finished. Like
yeah,
that's a big project. That's a big project. So congrats to that. And yeah, I mean, the, you know, the mix and stuff and the quality or whatever, you know, that's like, some of that stuff matters. Obviously, you know, garbage quality is bad.
yeah,
But these days, like indie music and bedroom production and even lo-fi and stuff, a lot of that, you
mm,
know, it's not the highest quality going in anyway.
yeah,
And using, you know, using filters and, like you said, you know, mastering
yeah,
softwares
yeah,
and even some AI tools these days, you can really clean up pretty messy recordings
yeah,
and make them really good. So I don't think it's like as important as it used to be. Obviously, like, yeah, for, you know, certain radio stations or for sync deals or whatever it might
yeah,
be, they might really want that high quality. But, you know, we live in this TikTok age where these, you know, independent bedroom producers and artists are just posting it with their phone. You know what I mean? We're singing into their
yeah,
phone, and you can go viral with that if it's a catchy enough
yeah,
tune or whatever, right? If it can,
yeah.
so you know, it's really you know, the doors are wide open in that sense. So there's something to that that's really freeing. Like you said earlier, you mentioned freeing as a quality. There's something very freeing about that fact that you don't need to be in $1 million studio to make a song that can really take off. You can do it in, you know, with your iPhone and audio messages, and then, you know what I mean? So there's something to that that's really, really unique.
Mhm.
But it's also kind of scary because it's like you don't have any, I don't have any excuses now. You know what I mean? I don't have any excuse. So
Yeah.
I can't blame the producer.
My wife just tried to call me. I'm
Oh,
just gonna open my laptop and send her a message and tell her I'm being interviewed. So
yeah, no
and
worries.
that
We can,
and then
we,
I'll
we,
call her back.
yeah, yeah, we can wrap this up pretty soon if you want anyway, my man. We've been talking for a bit. I don't want to keep you all night, especially if the wife, if the wife wants you.
Well, I'm fine. I'm just gonna, let me see. Oh, no, that's not the right one I want to open. I just want to let her know what's going on so she knows why.
Yeah. Yeah, so you mentioned Alley Cat earlier. Just while you're doing that, I'll real
Yeah.
quickly tell the audience. Alley Cat is actually going to be spinning for me at the Music PEI Awards in March. So
Okay.
March 6th, I believe. I haven't can't confirm the time yet. I believe it's March 6th that the Guild will be playing some of my songs as the opener night for Music PEI's award week. So DJ Alley Cat will be backing me up, and Hisham, who was in the chat earlier here. I'm not sure if he's still here. If he is, shout out to him. He'll be playing guitar backup. So I'm kind of announcing and kind of looking forward to that. That should be really fun.
Yeah, cool.
And yeah, and like you were saying, that's that live energy. You know what I mean? We'll have three of us on stage. Because I felt like opening night of Music PEI Awards. I don't want to just go out there and have it just be me. I want to really put on a show and really bring
Yeah.
something in for them. So we'll get DJ Alley Cat. He always kills it, man. That guy's so good. There's not many DJs on PEI like him. You know what I mean? There's not many
Yeah.
guys that do it the way he does. So shout out to Alley Cat.
Did so that part of Music PEI, were you like nominated for any of
Yeah.
the things?
Yeah, I was nominated this year. I was nominated for Hip Hop Recording of the Year,
Okay.
alongside Right Flow and the Umbrella Collective are the other nominees for it.
Okay.
So yeah,
Nice.
so I think because there was only a couple nominees this year for hip hop, they're putting us probably in the opening night instead of giving us like a hip hop night. Usually they do like 5 or 6 shows over the week, and
Okay.
kind of more genre specific. But I think this year they're just popping us on the opening night, I'd imagine. And my thought was like Umbrella Collective's a live band that has hip hop, so
Yeah.
I thought, you know what, like if they're opening before me, I don't want the energy to be this to this when I come on, just because I'm a solo act.
Yeah.
So my thought was, you know, for the sake of putting on a good show and stuff, and not maybe leaving myself out to dry a little bit. Not that I'm not confident performing solo, I'd totally do it, but
Yeah.
I do think like there's a difference. There's a different energy when there's live artists and then one guy. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So I was
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna bring the backup band. We're gonna bring the show, and we're gonna blow the roof off that place. And it's
Nice,
gonna be
nice.
really fun. I'm really excited for it.
Yeah.
So it should be fun.
I'd applied for that, but I didn't get it. But it was kind of a last minute thing. Like the last night, I'm not sure. Like they didn't really get back to me and say why, but I may have even disqualified. Like I might not have even had enough like of the musicians from PEI. Like I didn't like count them all up. But
Yeah, there is some rules like
hopefully,
release dates, stuff like that matters too sometimes.
yeah. Hopefully, I'll have something out by next year or something. I'll just apply again or whatever, because I figure stuff like that probably helps just in terms of exposing you to other people. I don't know if there's places for people to play if they're not nominated. Because I wasn't around for the last one, but and then ECMAs are coming up. I don't know if there's a way for a person like me that's just starting to get into that, but poke around and look.
Yeah, I'd
But
say your
if
best
not,
bet
I think
is,
it's a matter of time, you know.
well, for one thing, you'll be able to put your album in for next year's. If you don't, I think most albums are eligible for about 2 years' time. So you could perform your album over the course of the summer, kind of, and then when the next awards roll around, you can probably put that one in.
Oh, the same
You'd have to check, like I said, release
one.
date sometimes matters. Yeah, 100%. If you don't get nominated for it, you can probably put it in next year, and that way you'll have the year to perform live, get some feedback, get some reviews, whatever that stuff might be to fill in those blanks that you might have felt like you had. So
Well,
that'll
I'm
help
trying to
you.
do a
And
lot
then,
of stuff on social media,
oh yeah,
to see how that helps. Like there's I joined this group called Band Together, which it's basically all artists trying to support each other. So it's been, I've got like probably gone from 80 followers to 300 or something for my Facebook thing, kind of through there, just networking with those people. And, as I start to play more shows like this will kind of be my first show with the full band. Like I did one show a couple months ago, 3 or 4, I don't know how many months ago at Up Street or whatever, but my guitar player couldn't make it, so it was sort of an experiment. It was just me and the bass player, and there's some things that just like we got together the day before to try to figure out, okay, which ones might sort of work without guitar, and so I'm really looking forward to this one because that was okay, with the two of us, but it wasn't quite the same without without all of us. Like there's one tune I looked over and Wade just had this. I look on his face like, yeah, he was completely lost. He didn't know what was coming for the next song. And then I realized I kind of forget it too, even though we practiced it earlier that day, because it starts with guitar.
Right.
If we would have heard the first 3 or 4 guitar notes, it all would have clicked in. So we just made something up that was absolutely nothing like it. So that was like an experiment because I just wanted to. I guess I was impatient to sort of get there and do it. But this one I'm really looking forward to. You know, things are starting to get more, starting to get tighter and more like we've been playing together now for, I don't know how long that is, since May, whatever that is. May. What is it now?
Yeah.
June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January. It must be 8 months or something like that now.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward. There's a couple other good bands, and
definitely.
And the fact that I open with the first band, I'll be warmed up, so that'll be kind of nice.
True. That's true. That's right. Yeah. And you might get a bit of that, like, it's a different energy opening as it is being like the main kind of like the headline act kind of thing too. So you'll get a bit of that, like the crowd's still figuring it out, still feeling you out and stuff. Yeah. And maybe by the time that your band's up, they'll be all used to you and know what to expect and be ready for you. Who knows?
And maybe
it'll be interesting. It'll be
if I'm playing drums in that band, like, I mean, there might be some that like, because I've got my stuff up on Spotify, but my album doesn't have a picture of me; it has a painting.
Right.
So there could be some people see me play with that band and don't realize. Like Mark, my guitar player, was saying the other day that there's probably a lot of people, if they listen to my stuff, they probably don't realize that I'm playing drums and doing the.
In the chat that he likes discussing metaphysics with the Swans. That is one of the tracks off of Trevor, Lowell, Clements, and the Barn Cat Poetry Beat album. Sorry, I'm just reading it. It's quite the name. It's a mouthful of a name for the album too. So I got to double check every time. I don't want to get it wrong. Sorry. Here, let's get Barn Cat back in here. There we go. There's the invite. So the Laboratory of Poetics and Sound Manipulation. Yeah, hey man. I was just saying to the chat, apparently Instagram has added some kind of timer or something to the live.
That's what it seems like.
Yeah, which is really strange. Like you'd think like more than an hour stream is a good thing sometimes. Like I've seen podcasts go for hours, so how strange.
Oh, like Joe Rogan's got like 3-hour podcasts sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, go figure. The internet's getting tired of me, I think. Anyways, I didn't mean to cut you off there. You were talking.
I figured that's what happened. My Skype does that too, because I don't have, unless you have the one that you pay for, like
you gotta pay. That's right.
Yeah, like through my master's program, if I log in through that, then there's no time limit. But just on my own account for not Skype, Zoom, my own account for Zoom, it's like 40 minutes or something. So
yeah, go figure. Yeah, go figure. Right, gotta love it. Yeah, you gotta pay for everything these days. Premium. It's like I wonder if I still had my Instagram verified badge, if it would remove that timer. But I actually got rid of my Instagram verified badge because people would just use it as an excuse to be rude to me. It was really weird. Really? It was like, why? Yeah, it was like I signed up, I got this, I got the verified badge, and then people in comment sections would be like, "You're a loser. You pay for verification." I'm like, I make money. I get paid because people book me through my Instagram. It's very useful for me to have a way people know it's me. Sorry. But yeah, people were so mean about it. I was like, this ain't worth it. This ain't worth it. People will book me anyway. They'll find out it's me, I guess. But it's weird, right? But yeah, anyways, everything's premium these days. They got people, they're charging people for Twitter premium these days, I guess. And I'm like, I ain't paying for Twitter, bro. Sorry, I'm not using it nearly that much. Yeah, go figure.
Yeah.
So
I don't have
you guys have. Oh, sorry, go on.
So I don't have the pro Spotify either. I mean, they don't pay artists much anyways, unless you're really, even the really big one, like even Snoop Dogg was saying, this guy's got 10 million views and he makes like a couple $1,000 or something. He said something's not right there.
Yeah.
So.
It's a real mess, Spotify takes the money that they don't pay artists, gives it to lobbyists. The lobbyists then take it to government, who lobby for lower streaming payouts. Yeah. And then because they got the money bags. Those laws pass, and then sure enough, 10 years of that, and you've got artists that get next to nothing per stream. And then Spotify gets rid of other ways for us to monetize our art. There's only a couple websites you can link your merch to through Spotify, so you have to use certain companies and stuff. It's a mess. There's all kinds of things. It's just a mess about it.
I just look at it as sort of like, I guess, advertising. I'm not like just the way their business model. I'm not going to make any money from it. I suppose if I got enough momentum, then maybe. I know some people eventually take their stuff off of it or whatever, but apparently their new business model is that unless you have at least 1,000 streams, they're not going to pay you anything, and they're going to put it into a pool to give the big artists. I mean,
to bigger artists up the pay. Yeah, they're going to move the pay raise up one level of the pyramid essentially.
Like,
but
does
the joke
jazzy
of that,
need that money more than you?
well, yeah, no joke, right? Well, and the joke is too, most of those artists that pool of money will go to are major label artists, right? Because the majority of the major successful artists in the world are on major labels, and the label gets 80% of that money. So really what's happening, Spotify is taking that money and giving it to
the label,
major labels indirectly. They're going to say, oh, yeah, it's because of server space and all these songs get uploaded. Nobody's listening to them every day. Both of those may be true, but that's not the real reason they're doing it. You know what I mean? Like, the real reason is because the bottom line is every year Spotify's shareholders want more money. And Spotify is not a very profitable company. A lot of people have been looking at their numbers going, Spotify doesn't make money. So, it's got to go somewhere, I guess, right? You can always follow the money. It always ends up. Indie artists always get screwed. We're always the ones that get paid last and get all those monetization things taken away. So it's a screwy game. I don't even really promote my Spotify per se much anymore. I do have a strategy over 2024 I'll be employing to push people to Spotify. But over 2023, I didn't bother. I focused on building content, creating content for my YouTube channel. So in the future, I can promote that and hopefully monetize that. And YouTube doesn't per view pay more than per stream on Spotify, but there's so many more ways to get those views, to get those streams, and the money goes to the actual creator, not through a third party, and then you have to wait 3 months, and then blah, blah, blah. There's all these things that just make it such a nightmare for Spotify. People think, you get
advertising money and stuff that you can make, don't they, on YouTube, or something like that? Like, there's more ways to make money, I think.
Yeah, 100%. It's just more, and also YouTube is actually creator friendly. They're like, hey, we've made it actually easier to monetize in the last 3 years. Whereas all these other platforms are making it either more difficult, or in the case of Spotify, saying, if you're a low level creator, you don't get to make any money anymore. It's funny you say you don't pay for Spotify Pro or Premium or whatever. A lot of artists shouldn't. It's crazy to me that if you're uploading music onto Spotify and promoting Spotify as an artist, hey, go to Spotify, listen to my music, they can't even give you a free subscription when you upload your music. You're paying yearly to have your music on there. There's no reason they can't just cover that fee too. But that really goes to show. I mean, how sad is it in a lot of ways? A lot of artists are not making enough money off of their music on Spotify to pay for their Spotify account, right? That is actually really gross when I think about it.
So, that's why, I look at Spotify. It's like I'm just kind of starting out. Like, I mean, the last time I would have performed in PEI would have been probably early 2000s, before I went overseas. So it's not like I've really been out there around here for a long, long time. So, nobody's really gonna know me too much. So I figure for now, I sort of have to build, I sort of have to get myself out there first. And, so I think at this point, really looking for money isn't. It's not. It doesn't really make sense. Or whatever, if maybe I reach a certain point, then I could push Apple Music more, or maybe get a Bandcamp or something like that. But for now, it's just like if I look at it as free advertising, and I'm not going to pay them because they're not going to give me anything unless I get quite big. So if I look at it that way, I guess it's okay. But they are pretty gross in terms of their attitude towards especially independent artists.
100%.
Yeah,
it's a good. And I've been to songwriting songwriting workshops and stuff where people who worked at Spotify were actually there as representatives for Spotify and to talk about it, you know, and how artists can succeed on Spotify and all that stuff. And the guy more or less plugged the idea of like the lottery of the, oh, make sure every time you release, you pitch to our playlisters and you might get on an editorial playlist and make 1 million streams that way and become famous or whatever. You know what I mean? Like literally, that's the fantasy they try and sell you. And then, you know, I've followed Spotify for a long time. I've really tried to learn the ins and outs of it, the algorithm, all that stuff, how it works. And what I've come to learn is that Spotify is more or less a social media network using music. If you're collaborating with other artists, then your music will show up on the listeners of those other artists' music and so on and so forth. And that's the easiest way to kind of grow on it. But this idea that like out of all the artists that pitch every month, you're going to have the chance to get put onto their playlist, even if you've got no monthly listeners or whatever. It's a myth. And the guy, you know, the guy didn't want to admit it. I asked him, there's something called the popularity score on Spotify. And basically what it means is it's a tracker of how much people are searching for you on Spotify, sharing your music, listening to your music, all that stuff. All the aggregated totals adds up to what your popularity score is, right? Most artists are probably around a 10% or less popularity score on the platform. And I asked the Spotify rep, does your popularity score on the platform affect your like ability to get onto editorial playlists? And his answer was no. But I do not believe him. I think he was lying because there's not a single artist that has like 10 monthly listeners that gets put onto an editorial playlist. It never happens. You already have to have probably 50 or at least 25,000, I bet, minimum monthlies. You know what I mean? And that's literally me kind of assuming because they allow you to have discovery mode at 25,000 monthly listeners, which increases. For people who don't know what discovery mode is on Spotify, let's talk about gross. Spotify will put your music in front of people's faces more, but they're going to take more of your royalties. That's what discovery mode means. So imagine that. They're like, hey, we'll help you get more plays, but guess what? Now we're your record label and we're going to take, it's like 75% of it or 50% or something. So so really they ask you to play this game of like, oh yeah, pitch and maybe you'll win the lottery, or if you can get enough listeners through, you know, various other methods, whether they're legitimate or otherwise, they don't care. You might be able to get put on discovery mode and blow up that way. And then they take all your money. So it's like you're screwed. It's such a silly system. It's a very silly system. So for me, I think, I mean, not for me, but it's why a lot of people aim at TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube, other forms of getting their brand out there, because Spotify is not doing it for you. Spotify doesn't care about the indies. You know what I mean? So, and they're not going to put a guy like me on the top of their playlists when when Drake released this month, you know? So.
Yeah, I just look at it as a place where people, I can direct them to go listen to my song, but I'm not trying to get them there through Spotify. Like you, I'm using Instagram and Facebook. I haven't made any videos yet, so I don't have too much on YouTube, although, you know, I might do a podcast at some down the line, like you know, maybe when I finish my master's or something. But I kind of thought of, like, you know, because I'm studying counseling, of, you know, maybe doing a podcast with, you know, musicians and sort of talk about that that place, I guess, where music and mental health cross. You know, like how has your mental health, you know, impacted you as an artist, you know, for good or for bad. You know, did bad mental health make it so you had no motivation or couldn't do it, or, you know, I've quit bands because of depression before, right? When I, you know, was not in good shapes. Or has you know, maybe good mental health changed the way you approach music, or has music impacted your mental health, which could be for the good or for the bad. You know, it could lift you up, or maybe you could be, you know, so obsessed and bummed out about it that you know what I mean. So
I fall into that category.
What's that?
I fall into that category. I'm very obsessed to the point where, like, I do so much. Like, in the last 3 years, I've done, let me tell you, a crash course, 10,000 hours easily of trying to learn the marketing, the algorithms, social media, the music production side, the business side, all of it. You name it, from performance to literally every part of the industry. You know what I mean? To printing and making my own merch, the whole deals. And yeah, it's almost like it can be very depressing, for sure, burdensome, and just feel like there's too much for one person to do. You know what I mean? And as an indie artist, obviously you're doing most of it yourself. So for me, my goal of 2024 is get that team. Get the team, get 2-3 people that they don't need to do much. They don't need to do 90% of the work. But if they can do those 2, 3, 4 things that I can't do or don't know how to do or that I can't stand doing, then I think that puts you in a lot of like I think most indie artists will get 10 times further with a team of 2 or 3 people that work with them every week, every 2 weeks, whatever it is. So for me, my thing is just find out who those people are and then lock them down, if whether I have to pay them or what, which I will, of course. But you know what I mean? It's like figure out how to get those people that can help you get to those levels because you're not getting there yourself. That's
like,
for sure.
You know, since you've got like the nomination, right? You'll be, even if you don't win, you're still out there as somebody who was nominated. And I was just watching, you know, one of the music PEI. It was one of the workshops or whatever. You know, it was one that I missed. I wasn't able to make, but I got them to send me it so I could watch them. And you know, some of the people, that was kind of when things, you know, took off for them. You know, they did a showcase or they did something with one of these, you know, one of these music kind of things, and they met somebody, and that, you know, that person kind of had, you know, knowledge and connections or whatever, and you know, so it certainly would be, you know, good to have. And I mean, I almost had something like back in 2000 and I'm gonna say 2004. It was like after my first year in Korea, I came back to PEI, and I knew I was going back to Korea, you know, but I'd finished my first year, so I was looking for a new job over there, and you know, like I said, I used to busk, and you know, sometimes when I'm home, I'll do it sort of for nostalgia or maybe, you know, a little bit of pocket change or something, right? And I was busking at the farmers market, and this fella, Dennis Trainer, came by and he saw me. I didn't know him then, but you know, he's into the film thing, and so he got me, you know, playing on the soundtrack for one of his the films that he was making, and he was dating this girl at the time, and so we'd gone out to see one of her shows. She was like a singer-songwriter, you know, just her and her guitar and her voice, and she had a guy that she was working with, Lloyd. I think his name was Lloyd something. I think it was so long ago. Anyways, he was sort of, I don't know if he was her manager, but he was sort of like doing some stuff, like booking. At the very least, he was like a booking agent or promoter or something. And so I was talking to him while she's playing, and I said, well, since you're in this, you know, you're kind of doing this as a business, I said, do you mind if I drop by and just play you some of the stuff that's on my album now? Like I had some of that stuff recorded way back then, you know, a lot of it, not all of it, but and I said, I just want your opinion. Like, is this stuff marketable? What do you think? And I said, like, I'm going back to Korea soon, so I'm not going to do anything with it now. But just since you're in this kind of industry, I just want to hear what you say, you know? So he said, and we made an appointment. I went and I played it for him, and like he really liked it. Like he was like super enthusiastic, and it was nice to have somebody enthusiastic about something, you know, you're doing. And he was sort of trying to convince me not to go back to Korea, you know, and he was, you know, talking all this stuff, you know, I see you, you know, playing in New York and stuff like this. And I was like, it felt really good, but I was like, unless you can give me a contract that's going to guarantee me, you know, what I'm making now, I'm not going to bail on this job, you know, because I have like financial commitments that I got to live up to, you know. And you know, sometimes you know, there's like, I wonder, you know, what if that was a long time ago, right? Now I'm just starting to build this stuff now. But you know, I got the sense that like I didn't know if his reach equaled his enthusiasm. Right. You know what I mean? Like a little company from PEI, like I didn't know if he really had these connections in New York or whatever. Maybe he might have, who knows? But I kind of made the decision to say, no, you know, thank you. I'm really happy that you're excited about it. But you know, I could have had somebody working with me back then.
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe, you know, I think if I keep doing it, I sort of picture it like making a slow snowball.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna
That's a good metaphor.
keep doing it, and because I'm doing solo stuff, you know, I've been in many bands
Yeah.
over the years, you know, like in, you know, couple here in PEI, bands in Moncton, and then I was in a whole bunch of bands in Korea and, you know, different stuff. Not so much in the other, I wasn't really in any bands in Mongolia. I did a little bit of jamming with some of the other teachers. And not so much in Abu Dhabi, although I wrote and recorded a couple songs, but I didn't perform. It was kind of hard there. It's a Muslim country, and there's not really many bars except for the big hotels. And even
Right.
them, like those musicians are mostly, that's their job, and they need special permits because music's kind of considered kind
Different.
of
Yeah.
like haram or whatever, or like forbidden to a certain extent, like due to their religion and stuff. So it wasn't like an easy place to, to get into it. But then when I was in Brunei, I was in a bunch of bands and I played and, recorded some stuff. And one of the bands, we put out a video. So I've done a lot of playing in bands, but, you get a band, it starts getting, you're in it for a while, it starts getting tight. Maybe you get a bit of momentum and then it breaks up.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel now, because I'm doing my solo stuff, if that happened, if the band, if somebody whatever got married and said I can't do this anymore, well, they're still my solo songs, like
Yeah.
I'm still gonna keep that.
Yeah. It doesn't have to change what you're doing.
I won't lose all momentum. Maybe it'll be a different set of players.
Yeah.
But I'll always be me.
Yeah.
So like I can sort of
Totally.
start building a catalog and building that slow snowball over time, and then, maybe there'll come a point where the snowball has that momentum and I hit a hill, like,
Yeah, exactly. No, that's a great metaphor for it.
And if I don't, I'm okay with that too.
Yeah.
I'm 51. I've lived long enough, I guess, to not expect it, but but also not to rule it out. Like stranger things have happened. People.
Yeah, you never know. Yeah, you never know. That's right. And like we talked about earlier, like success can come in different ways. Like, when people think success, that means different things to different people. So success for me is, what I mean, a different thing than it is for the next guy. So, you could get, you might never, sell out Madison Square Garden or whatever, but you could still get pretty decent money from some sync deals or, have your music in some commercials that pay you pretty good. Like that's still pretty decent. Like you can't really complain when you're making, it came out of nowhere. The music came out of your brain. You know what I mean? If you can get a bit of something out of that, that's pretty cool. Like I've been very blessed. I've been able to, travel to Maritimes through my music and put on some cool shows for people and meet some really cool people through that. And that's because during COVID, I was sitting in my house bored and went, you know what, I put off making music for 20 plus years, telling everybody I could do it. I never did. It's time to put up or shut up. And, it really changed my life for the better in a lot of unexpected ways. And that goes for like, anything in life where you can dedicate yourself for a few years, I think can really shock you how far it can take you or where you'll end up kind of going or what you'll end up doing. So there's something really cool about that. And you said something else that about the snowball thing and stuff kind of thing. It's such a good metaphor. And like you said, the having the solo music or whatever, where I mean, if the band breaks up or whatever. When I started, that was my main thing. Was like I was in so many jam bands that we couldn't get a song finished because everybody wanted to do different things. And I knew back in those days, like, okay, well, if we get one song finished or 5 songs finished or an album finished and it's this laborious and this difficult, what happens when the money's coming? And then it's going to be argument city, right? So for me, my whole thing was I will make the music myself. I will find ways to fund it to make it work, and I can perform it myself if I need to. I have my own setup. If I need to, I can perform anywhere alone. I don't need permission. I don't need anybody else's time or money or rights or whatever. If I have a show and I want to bring in musicians, I absolutely will, and that's something I'm starting to do more, and something I look forward to doing more because that to me has become more fun than I realized. But for me, the independence and being able to perform when I want was number one. That was my main thing. I was like, that's actually why I made hip hop, because I was like, I don't need a band. I can just get up on stage with a mic. That was
Yeah.
literally that was one of the main reasons I made a hip hop record to begin with. It was like
Yeah.
when I was figuring out how I wanted to start, it
Yeah.
was, can I do it myself? Can I do it in the home studio? Because I couldn't go to a studio during COVID.
Yeah.
So I couldn't even, you know what I mean? I had to record the vocals in my living room when no one was home. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so, and of course, over the years since then, now I know, like, okay, when I want to get vocals done, I'm gonna go get them tracked a certain way at a certain place or whatever. But you have
Yeah.
to learn that stuff somehow. And if I was like waiting for the band to show up every day instead of just getting to it, I
Mm.
might have still never finished the record. So there's definitely I give you a lot of credit and kudos for
Mm.
being able to go just like, I'm going to do it my way, and then we can
Mm.
bring in other people as we go, and it'll get better from there for sure. Because having
Yeah.
more people, more minds, and it's always better. But having that, like, step one being just from your heart, kind of, I think that also there's a purity to that too. I think that's important to start from.
Yeah.
I think not
And I
always.
kind of
Obviously,
got
collaboration is
lucky.
beautiful. But, sorry. Go on. Sorry.
I said I kind of got lucky too with the guys that I'm like that I'm playing with now. Like Mark actually did the guitar on one of my things that I recorded like a long, long time ago,
Mm.
and we'd had a jam. I think I was in a band with a guy. Like I'd met him when he first moved to PEI, and he was busking with a drummer, and I'd met him there, and then we jammed, I think, and then I was in a band, and my bass player was in a band with him, and I'm not sure if my bass player joined his band after I maybe brought them together to jam with me. I don't remember the
Yeah.
details of how it of kind of how it happened, but that like one time we had a jam, like there was like a real chemistry,
Right.
and
Right.
we had very similar um very, very similar kind of music tastes.
Mm.
And then like my bass player too, like all of us really enjoy improvising, and we have quite a similar, I mean obviously we're not clones of each other, so
No, yeah.
there are some differences, but I'm quite lucky that like we have kind of a good a kind of good thing between us. I'd like to have maybe one more member, like a multi-instrumentalist
Yeah.
would be nice.
Keys
Somebody
or
who can play
something or whatever.
piano
Yeah.
and horns
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And maybe that'll come eventually or whatever. I'll find the right person. But like it's pretty good, between the three of us. But I know, that like they want to like gig like once a month, right?
Mm.
Or at least Mark, So if the snowball did happen, I don't know 100% if they'd be on board to go on tour.
Yeah.
But I mean, there are a lot of bands there are a lot of solo artists that have like recording bands and touring bands.
Yeah. 100%. Yep.
So I mean that would be an option if it had to come to there. And I was pretty obsessed for about like 4 or 5 months with live looping. I was like, for the same reason you did, I kind of thought if I can, like, I've never really done it, but like I was watching all these videos, and I really there's a whole, like, I don't know what's the word I'm trying to, like, a spectacle of how they build it up piece by piece, and this one person builds this huge thing, just watching that. So like that's something that I may look at someday, is like if I can take like the live looping, and let's say just through my voice and drums and effects, if I can do a version of my stuff that way, then if I did need to do a show and they weren't available, I could go do it. So that's still something. But for a while, I thought that I wouldn't be able to get musicians that would be kind of into sort of what I was doing, because I suppose hiring somebody that's not totally into it just for a session is one thing, but as far as people are going to play with you always, you want them to have some passion for it, right?
100%.
And luckily these guys do, but I didn't know if I'd be able to find that, right? Because up until that, my experience was, I found a few people to to play with me, but there was never anything where they seemed that interested in doing it long term. So I was pretty obsessed with for the while the idea of I'm gonna go and do live looping so that I could just make it all myself. And it wouldn't have sounded like exactly like my recordings, but I would have, but maybe I would have came on a different sort of version of it. So who knows? Maybe I'll still try that someday, and I might, I might do a side project or something, because if they don't want to, play a whole lot, well, that's okay. I mean, Charlottetown's pretty small. I don't necessarily want to oversaturate myself anyways, right quick. So I might get a band together, just where I'm doing more songs and less poetry, and maybe a few more covers, maybe something that's a little bit more mainstream that I could just make some, make a little bit more money with, but it still might be not completely mainstream. I might be throwing like Tom Waits and Frank Zappa in there, but there's a certain market for that too. But not as big as, not as big as like you said, Taylor Swift or anything. But so I don't know. I think there's lots of different ways, and I'm just happy that I'm doing it. You know what I mean? Even if it doesn't produce a lot of money, and I'm looking to go into another career that I'm quite passionate about. So so it's, and I think that's going to make a huge difference, right? Like if I'm enjoying my job, it's not like this or like I have to do this or do music. Like I can sort of do both, and I can find a way that they both coexist. And if it happened that the music really took off, then I guess I'd have a decision to make. But there's no use fretting about that now. It may never come to the pass anyways.
That's right. You're going to be miserable for a long time probably in the music industry if you go into it trying to make the money. That's for sure. It's not an easy industry to make money in, that's for sure. So
I think you just have to enjoy it, and if you can enjoy the process of just doing it and making it and performing, then you're in a good place. Like if you're happy, then you're good. Whether that comes with money or not, you got to find a way that you're content.
The art has to fulfill you one way or another, because if it doesn't, because you can't be fulfilled by the accolades, you can't be fulfilled by the people cheering in the audience, you can't be fulfilled by the money, because there's going to be times when those things aren't there. Like I've performed to empty crowds, I've performed for no money, I've taken losses doing shows and still been happy to perform because I love to do it. That's the thing, right? And going to shows where I'm not getting paid and I get maybe not the slot in the lineup I would like, because it's maybe not as busy or whatever, but I love to do it. And that's at the end of the day, like you said, that's ultimately the main thing, is if the money's the bonus, if the money, if you can make money doing it, that's great. And when I do do shows and they do well, sorry, my dog's barking at somebody in front. Sorry, one sec. Willie, hold on, buddy. I have a border collie, by the way, everybody, and he's very, very, he's a very good dog, but he's a little overprotective. Whenever the neighbors pull into the driveway beside us, he thinks it's like World War III or something. So, but no, like you said, you've got to be, you've got to love the art, because if you don't, you're going to be so worn out after 3. I took a break the last 6 months, not doing as much on my social media, because I was burning out on the content stuff. I'd make music, and then before I even got to enjoy it or anything, I was trying to come up with 20 pieces of video to go with it. You know what I mean? And budgeting issues started coming up because I'm not great at budgeting, and all these problems started arising because I wasn't just focusing on hey, just make music that you're happy with, and don't worry about having to make 20 videos around it. You know what I mean? You don't really have to do that stuff. That's stuff that you should want to do. You know what I mean? And I've kind of taken the time to learn, and go okay, maybe I don't have to grind every single day, but when I do decide to do those grinds, it's because it's something that I feel like I'm going to be happy about at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Because I spent a decent amount of time, a couple projects kind of thing, where I was just doing it because I had been doing it, and because I felt like I should still be doing it, and I didn't want to like fall off or lose people's attention or whatever it might be. You know what I mean? All other things that are like external. You know what I mean? None of it's just like, do I want to make this song? Do I like this song? Do I want to share it with people? Like those are really the important questions. You know what I mean?
And
All the other stuff like, hey, will I get paid?
Can be like the social media stuff can be very draining, because I've been sort of trying to build it a little bit myself, because until this gig that's coming up, I haven't gigged much, right? So I figured, well, I'm not gigging, I'll at least try to do what I can to get,
get that,
like, doing the iTunes, having a couple songs in the iTunes, and then I did I was the guest last Sunday show or whatever, and now like your thing, so that hopefully when I do have a gig, there's a few more people through social media that I can say, hey, I'm actually going to be there in real life, I find I have to have some balance, because it's, with this like website I mentioned earlier, like Band Together, they had some things where like there was one thing where it's like, everybody drop your song in and then, basically listen to everybody's song, like at least 30 seconds of it, like and follow. And we're doing that for each other, on Spotify, so that to bump each other up. But, you spend quite a bit of time, and then if you answer every single one, like it can get quite exhausting. So like, I gotta find I don't want to lose too much of the balance, right? And there was a while there where I was excited that I was playing music, and I'd started to I avoided Instagram for I've had Facebook for a long time, but I had no other social media, because I figured I'd waste enough time on Facebook. And then when I started coming back here and getting into the music, a friend of mine that plays in a band and stuff, he said that like Instagram's pretty big for the musicians and stuff. So I thought, okay, I guess I'll, break down. And so that was only a couple of months ago. I don't know that, and I joined Instagram, but I kind of said, it's not a personal Instagram, it's my Barn Cat thing. So I try to do only music stuff, so as much as I might like the cute cats playing video, I don't do any of that stuff. It's just, and that's partly to try to keep like a balance, so I'm not doing it too much, and also to keep a focus, so I have a purpose, like that, and then also I made another Facebook group that was not my personal, but just for just for the Barn Cat stuff, and and then that's you're getting a lot more notifications and stuff, because now you have 3 different sites. You have
there's always something to keep you busy.
And there was a point where I was like, building that stuff, and maybe writing lyrics and doing that, and my wife was like, she was kind of, I had to like step back, right, because I wasn't spending enough time with her, right? So I kind of, move stuff around. I talked to the band, said, can we practice on, a Tuesday or Thursday instead of Saturday? And said, I won't do all this stuff, during the week. I'll, to have some balance in just in life. Right? Because music can't be, it's not the only part of my life. Right?
You'll miss out on the other stuff if you're doing all that.
Family, there's, there's all this stuff that's also important, and sort of keeping myself, mentally well. Although, she's in Korea now. Now she's like I met my wife in Korea. She's gone there to visit her family and stuff. So, so the last couple weeks I've been sort of living like a bachelor, right? And well, you can see the instruments got moved upstairs, and well, that's because I had a potluck party last week, right? And my rehearsal room downstairs is not big enough, right, to have other people. But I kind of found that like that while she's not here, that like I don't necessarily have an off switch.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
just
Right.
going into this mode of, in this band together website and doing this and doing that.
Right.
And then you can realize like so many hours can go away. And I sort of had to step
Yeah.
because it can feel like it can feel all encompassing and overwhelming. Like, cause you could do it 24/7. Like if you let yourself, right. Cause there's always, there's always no, like, I think I have to go into my Instagram or something and figure out how to to change the notifications. So like I only get notifications if people comment
Yeah. Yeah.
or maybe like I don't want the notifications to know when everybody has posted because I'm
Yeah. I know. That's
spending enough time just going and going through you know what I mean? I want it to be just like I only get notification when somebody has commented on something I did, and then I go to the site when I want to see what other people are doing. Like I have to, like if you don't have limits, like it's kind of it's unhealthy, I think.
100%, 100%. And it's been proven that an hour or more of social media a day makes people unhappier. It's proven. There's no doubt about it. Like that is a proven thing. And then you're expecting these artists to get on every day, scream into the void about their new song when 60,000 other people are doing it, and to try and feel like they're standing out or doing it uniquely and stuff. It can feel very draining and like you're not being heard, or like, you know what I mean? It can beat you down a bit in that sense. So, for one thing, like you said, balance is 1,000,000% right. Balance is the key. Yeah, and don't. Yeah, like you said, you avoid the certain videos and stuff.
If you become totally miserable, like what's the point? It's
Yeah,
supposed
100%,
to
right.
be fun. It's
Yeah.
supposed to be enjoyable.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, I might have some dark songs and explore that because it's not like I'm going to be, fake and say I'm happy all the time. But
yeah, of course.
But I mean, if you're doing it to the point where you're really, really not enjoying it, then it's like you've sort of missed the,
Yeah, you missed the
got your
point
wires
almost.
crossed.
Yeah. Well, and I think it comes off in the content, I feel like, too. Like you've got to, if you're miserable doing it, it's just going to become a grind, and it's going to become like this, like a factory, you know what I mean? Where you're just like, okay, here's the content, here's the content, here's the content. Not like, I'm passionate about this. Like, you should see this because I did something that I found was really cool. There's like a genuineness to that, I think people will latch onto and notice. And there is something to be said, of course. They say like, beat the algorithm, post 3 times a day or whatever. You know what?
Yeah.
I know plenty of pages where they've got 5 pieces of content that have millions and millions of views because they knew how to push those pieces of content rather than just, 50 pieces of content and hope 5 of them stick. Like there's different strategies that you can employ, and for sure, there's merits to all of them, I'm sure. But it's you don't have to do that, like you say, like every single day grinding on it or something. That was what I was doing. I did that for a year, and I earned a nomination for Digital Presence of the Year. And I went, oh my gosh, this is great. I'm getting recognized for the hours and hours of editing I did. And then I did not win that award, and I went, oh my God, I feel like I got ripped off. And I went, okay, wait a minute. Did I spend all those hours editing because I wanted to win an award? No, I did it because I liked the videos and I thought it was cool and I enjoyed the songs, right? Like you have to remember that stuff, right? But it's so easy to get caught up in the rat race of it, whether it's the views, the likes, the comments, the whatever it is, right? Whatever dopamine it's trying to give you, because that's what social media does. It's trying to hack your dopamine. You got to do your best to stay out of that game, 100%. 100%, because it's too easy already to log on and doom scroll for 2 hours and lose your day. And then when you've got multiple pages or whatever, you know what I mean? Like it's just it can be a real mess. And like for me, I was posting whenever I'd post a video, I'd finally finish editing, and then I'd go post it on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, like 7 or 8 sites. You know what I mean? And that's an hour alone just doing all the posts. And then you know what I mean? Like it became this weird thing. I'm not saying don't do it. Like I think depending, like pick a strategy that works for you, obviously, right? But I'm not doing that again, that's for sure. Like I figured out, okay, I'm a guy who enjoys making a couple good pieces of content and then really breaking those down and getting into those and trying to promote them. I'm not trying to do like every day, hey, here's me, here's what I'm doing, because that's just not me in a genuine sense. I don't like being in front of the camera that much and stuff, you know what I mean? Even though I do a podcast and my music videos are my face and stuff, that's not what I'm doing it for. I'm not like, hey, look at me. Like I don't for me, the face isn't the thing. Check out the music. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to be told I'm cute here. Go listen to music. Tell me you like the song. You know what I mean? But content's this weird popularity contest. A lot of people are playing high school still, where it's I want to be the guy everybody is jealous of. I want to be the guy everybody looks on and comments and likes because I'm posted up with a Lamborghini or whatever the hell it might be, right? But social media is such a non-reflection of reality, right? You can pose in front of a rented car and take a photo, and people will think you're a baller, but that's not the truth of it, right? So it's so easy to get caught up in that game, and like you said, finding the balance and ways to avoid that. That's going to keep you happy in the long term, and you're going to want to do it longer. Like, you're not going to burn yourself out like I did and have to take a break. I literally had to take a break because I was killing myself that way. Not like, my mental health was suffering because every day was like, okay, back to the editing. How can I push the song today? How can I do it in a way that doesn't feel forced? How can I do it so people don't get sick of me? And you're suddenly asking yourself a million questions when all you have to do is go and create something you're happy about. You know what I mean? But people forget that because
I think you can do binges.
Yeah,
and I mean, that's maybe not all a waste. Like you probably built something from that, but it's also good to know when, like, okay, I got to step away from this. I'm not healthy anymore.
It's got to serve your purpose ultimately, or whatever. Because if you're serving it, ultimately, you're just pushing stuff into the algorithm and feeding the endless content machine, and that's not helping anybody, right? So ultimately, it has to work for you.
I think you run the risk of, like, losing your authenticity too, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, like, if you're making something that you think is cool, but then if you get to the point where it's like, oh, I have to have 5 videos a day,
it becomes
and
McDonald's.
let's say you don't have that inspiration right now, but you got to, like, try to come up with it. You know what I mean? It could become like a caricature of what you started out as.
100%. Yep. 100%. Yep. Yeah. And the quality can, like, I do think there's a quality and quantity debate to be had too. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people are saying every 2 weeks you need to drop a new song. Hell no, I'm not dropping a song every 2 weeks, brother. Not doing it because I won't be happy with the product. I won't be proud of that as much as I would be if I took that extra time to make sure everything was right about it. Like, for me, the craft is what I love to do. For me, I love crafting the song and sculpting all the lyrics and making sure every line kind of flows properly and stuff. If it's choppier or maybe I'm just not talented enough too. Like, you know what I mean? Maybe people at a certain level are good enough they can pump out those songs every week and it's still a certain level of quality. For me, I'd rather make people wait a little while and not that people are sitting there biting their nails wondering what I'm releasing, but I would rather be able to come out of the vault with something I'm like, look at this gold, instead of going like, I got a bunch of rocks, there might be some diamond in there. You know what I mean? Like, for me, that's not my game, you know what I mean? So, yeah. All right, well, let's wrap this up, my man. We've been talking for a while. How can the people find you and tell them a bit about what's going on with you in the next week or two with your show and stuff? So they can tune in.
So on Instagram, I think you could just type in TLC Barncat. It might have it might be TLC. I think it's TLC _ Barncat.
Yeah, something like that.
But the full name of my band is kind of a long tongue. It's Trevor, Lowell, Clements, and the Barncat Poetry Beat, and the and is that little symbol, ampersand or whatever they call it. Same name on Facebook. I have the Facebook. Same name Spotify. The album is called A Laboratory of Poetics and Soundwave Manipulation.
I love that name. I'm telling everybody about it. I'm like, this is the best album name I've heard in a while. That's great, man. That's a great name.
Well, it's poetic. It is a mouthful. Especially, like, I joke, like, just by saying my band name and my album name, that's 15 minutes there.
That's over. Thanks, folks. We'll see you next time. That's funny.
But next Saturday, so January 20th, it's my album release celebration, so I'll be playing at Sportsman's, including my project. There's 3 bands, so Stratabuse, TLC, and the Barncats. I guess that's a short way to say it. And the Devil's Punch Bowl. So it's going to be fun. We've got there's a visual artist, really great guy, Chester Hewlett.
Cool.
He does his art on a tablet. He had a show a while ago at the Arts Guild, and he's got a bunch of his artwork up in the Confederation Center Library too. but he's going to be, I'm going to bring my projector in, and he's going to plug his tablet into the projector. So he's going to basically make art in real time while the music is happening. So it'll be like the music feeding into, and he'll make whatever the music,
wherever it takes him. Yeah,
wherever it takes him. So that's kind of going to be cool. Yeah. I think Jeff from Strataboost, he does like a lot. He has a lot of lighting. He does the lighting for some of the big shows. Like he did stuff for Love Junkies, and I think there was a show a while back with some of the bigger names. I doubt he's going to take all his stuff. It'll probably be small. You know,
right,
is kind of a little dive bar. I'm sure.
The full laser show might be a bit much.
Yeah. But I've seen some of the pictures of his stuff, and it looks like something you'd see at a Pink Floyd concert. So he has quite a lot of stuff. But I imagine it'll be a little small. But we'll have the whatever you call it, the project. I guess the art projection show. I think he'll be selling some of his like clothing line T-shirts with his art stuff. So that'll be kind of neat. Yeah. And that's pretty much what's going on. And then you can look iTunes. I was the guest last week, which was last Sunday, I think it's episode 22. So you can hear another video on there and hear some songs. And yeah, Spotify, my album's up there. And I guess it's on all the stuff too, because TuneCore puts it and everything. So if you really like me, I suppose you could go to iTunes and buy it, because you can get it free on Spotify. The
options are available. That's right.
Yeah. Anyways, thanks a lot for having me here. It was great to meet you and chat, and maybe we'll see you at the show, and hopefully I'll get out and see one of your shows someday, and maybe we do one together at some point.
That'd be pretty cool. I think that'd be really neat. Yeah, like you said, we can do that evolution or something of the poetry and stuff like that. I think that'd be a pretty cool idea. Yeah. I think that'd get some people out too. I think unique shows is the way. Like you got to have a kind of not a gimmick per se, because I don't like the word gimmick, but you need to have something to make it different. You got to stand out. You know what I mean? Make it something people want to come see. We're entertainment. Let's entertain the people. Yeah. No, I love it, man.
I don't think necessarily gimmick, but like since like for the Barn Cats, we're only gonna maybe play like once a month.
Right.
So if we're not playing every weekend, I kind of want to make it an event.
Yeah, exactly.
I notice a lot of bands come out and they don't have too much with the drum kit, which is just fine. Like you don't need a whole lot, but I do have, like, if I just can disturb my cat and move a little bit, like I've got. Where's the thing that I turn it around? Here, I mean, I've got, I bring my percussion, and I've got quite a lot of cymbals and
the gong back
and
there.
My gong and the rototoms. And I guess if not playing that often, then I'm maybe not going to burn myself out to bring all the stuff and try to at least make each show somehow memorable.
Mm. That's a beautiful kit. That's a really cool drum
every
kit.
Single weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're right. It's great to be able to make it an event. And yeah, if you're playing every weekend, probably not going to want to lug the whole thing around all the time.
It's smaller and smaller. You might notice the more. But I do have a stuck-in kit now. This is sort of my live kit. I have another one downstairs, so that'll make it easier because I don't have to tear everything down. Like that was kind of exhausting, like if I tear my drum kit down, put it in the car, go to the show, set it up, play, tear it down, put it in the car, take it home, and then you got to set it up so you can rehearse again. That's quite exhausting. So now I have, the rehearsal kit can just stay down there. And eventually I'm trying to build it up that I have enough like cymbal stands and stuff that, I don't need to even tear that stuff down. Maybe just take the cymbals off the stands and put them in the bag so that it's just, I'm trying to make it a little easier. So I really wanted a new audio interface, and I didn't have enough money to do both. So I was like, what's it going to be? Is it going to be the audio interface or a drum kit first? And I kind of thought, the drum kit's more
fun.
It's more practical first, because if I want to do live shows, I don't want to have to be tearing down and setting up so many times. So it can be just it's set up now because of my party last week, and I'll I'll tear it down before the gig, but after that, it'll when it comes home, it'll just be sitting upstairs in the corner, not down in the rehearsal room, and it'll just be ready to just grab and throw in the car. So make it easier.
Yeah. I've always said the best thing an artist can do for creativity's sake is have like their creative space, one that's accessible. Like you don't need to go, like if I had to go wire my studio every time I wanted to record vocals, by the time you get to the creative part, you've burnt out that energy, or it's like gone, or you switch to tech brain mode and suddenly you're not in that zone anymore. So yeah, having that, like you said, separating the two and having the one like that just stays there. So anytime you've got an idea or anytime you want to jam, it's there. That is aces. Exactly. That is the way for sure. Yeah, for sure. Accessibility is A1 for creativity. Yeah, right on.
I'll show you here's the poster.
Oh, very cool. You got the poster. Oh, you got it framed and everything too. I should have done that for my own show posters. I'm so silly. Oh my God. That's a great idea. There you go. So there it is, everybody.
I don't know this, by the way, all the shows, but it's an album release, so I thought it's a nice little memento or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. No, yeah, for sure. Yeah, keep something to remember, and like, because it's kind of a landmark moment. Yeah. So so let me say congratulations to you for that. It's a big achievement. A lot of people talk about it. Not many people get to it. So it's cool that you got to.
Well, it only took 25 years. Hopefully
hey, better late than never.
Sooner.
Yeah, hopefully the second one doesn't take 25 years too, because that'll be a little while. But we'll see.
I got some stuff already recorded, so maybe I'll release some of them as singles, and that way I can release them again as live versions with the new band, because they've sort of morphed.
Right. That's kind of cool too, and people be able to hear that transformation too in the process, which is cool. Yeah, there's something very alive about that kind of an art form, and that's very cool. Because a lot of times music, we record it, like you say earlier, the tracking, it's not alive anymore when it's all set in stone, right? It's not so much alive, it's kind of the static thing. You do music the way you do it, there's something still alive and organic to it, and that's kind of neat. It's different every time, like you say, and that's very cool. That's very cool.
Yeah. I mean, there's an art to crafting things a particular way, and some types of music, call for that. And I've got nothing against that. Like I've done that and I've enjoyed it, that this one is crafted and it's going to be pretty much exactly the same. The stuff I'm doing now is not quite in that vein. So I don't really knock that or criticize, that too much. That can be a fun art form, building it and finding it exactly how it's meant to be. But some music doesn't, and the stuff I'm doing now doesn't really fall in that category as much. It's going to be kind of different every time live, and because we jam out, like sometimes something might be 15 or 20 minutes long, right? So like, in fact, I can't even play all my songs in a full show right now. Like maybe when I start playing only as myself, even then I might have to drop some from that night. But I mean, that's kind of good, because if you come back and see me twice, you're likely going to see something you didn't see last time.
Yeah. That's good too.
Even in the same song, but you'll maybe see a whole different song that I just didn't have time to get to.
That's funny. Yeah, no, that's true. No, that's exactly right, and that creates that variety too, which is cool. Yeah, and like you say, it gives people a different reason to come out and see you. Because if they've already seen the album once, they might go, "I've seen it already." But if you're going to do it differently, and they don't know what to expect, that's going to be different. And the idea of the projector in the background, the artist doing live art, that is beautiful too. That's a beautiful thing. So that'll be very cool to see. I'll do my best to make it out. I'm pretty sure I've got that night penned in my calendar, so I think I'll be there. But so I'll definitely come give you a high five or whatever.
Oh yeah,
I won't distract you while you're playing.
It'll be neat to meet another one of these people that I've met in digital world, in real life. You're not just an avatar.
That's right.
Real legs. They even walk.
Yeah. It was like that when I met Adam from iTunes. I was like, he's a real person. This is a real guy. It wasn't just an internet person. Yeah. It's funny how that works. Yeah. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on to Chasing Planes podcast. We'll definitely have you back on. Maybe like in the future when you got a new single or another show coming out, you let me know. We'll get back on here. We'll chop it up. So I had a great time talking to you. Right on.
Awesome. I enjoyed it as well. I like to talk.
Yeah, me too. I always say it's the one thing I'm good at in life.
Concepts.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what this whole podcast is about. Just talk about everything about music, ins and outs, the philosophies, the ideas, the tech, the tips, all that stuff. So I love hearing it.
Awesome. Well, you have a good night.
You too.
Call my wife.
Yes, say hi for me. All right,
I
guys.
will.
Trevor. So Trevor, Lowell, Clements, and the Barn Cat Poetry Beat. The album is called The Laboratory of Poetics and Soundwave Manipulation. Check it out on all platforms. Preferably stream it on Apple Music. But anyways, yeah, come on out to the Sportsman's on the 20th, right? I got that right? Sportsman's 20th. There you
Exactly.
go. You can see them live. All right, there you go, guys. Have a good night. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you again, Trevor, for joining me. I had a great time. So
Awesome.
we'll talk to you soon, my man.
Thank you so
Cool.
much.